Hey, how you going? It's Olivia here. Thanks for joining me for behind the scenes of Kakapo Crest. If you haven't seen the film, go and see the film first because you'll understand more of what we're talking about here. Let me just go to full screen mode and we can start off here. So I'm going to keep this pretty quick. We've got a lot of screen time happening these days, so we'll keep this pretty short and sweet. But I do want to talk about the trip because I suppose when you're making a film, you have to choose a storyline, which is what we did. But there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes. Just a couple of things before we get started. I wanted to acknowledge that this event is being held on traditional lands. We're all watching this from different places, so I'll keep that really open. And I wanted to pay respect to elders past, present and future. Thanks to Victorian Backcountry Festival in Hotham. I wish I was there. I haven't been to the snow for a couple of years, so yeah, can't wait to get up there. Yeah, miss you guys. And of course Arc'teryx for supporting outdoor films like this, for supporting me, and for supporting everyone in the backcountry and on the rock. There's also a quiz. So Arc'teryx are going to give away three $250 vouchers to you guys. But there's a quiz that you've got to fill out. So watch the film, watch this presentation because the answers are all in this. And the quiz is attached to the Vic Backcountry Festival page. And also another way to win is to go and hashtag and tag Arc'teryx in your best wilderness or adventure photo on your Instagram page. The instructions are on the Vic Backcountry website, so check that out. And also I'm doing Q&A via my Instagram this weekend. So if you've got any questions at all, I'll be popping in and out of my Instagram and I can, answer your questions. Okay, so I'm going to get straight into it. So I'm just going to talk, it's a bit of a slideshow. I'm just going to talk about the images, route planning, things like that. So I'm going to start with this image starting here. This is a still that I took of Anna, the Kiwi stoat trapper in the film, and this is actually on the afternoon or going into the evening of climbing day. We actually had no backup plan for if Liz and Rosie didn't come down, if they got stuck or whatever. So Anna and I had actually scrambled up to another spot to just wait for them, and they actually didn't arrive, and the sun was going down. It was a bit like, oh my gosh, they're up there somewhere. But yeah, it was a stellar sunset. That's actually the view looking towards where we would have kept going if that storm hadn't come in, because our original plan was to do a 3 peaks traverse and it wasn't actually to climb the Tusk. Okay. So I just do want to put a shout out to the Gutsy Girls Adventure Film Tour. Their little grant got me started on this idea. So years ago, I'd actually done a photography documentary book in Fiordland on venison deer hunting from helicopters. Sounds kind of gross, but deer are a pest in NZ, and they have to find ways to control them and keep them out of the wilderness. And one of those ways is to do aerial culling, especially in Fiordland, because the landscape is so severe that to go in there and walk, or it's a bit epic. And you can use bait or poison, but that's got issues associated as well. So my love of Fiordland actually came from photographing that book and being in the air for 40 plus hours in helicopters. And that's when I actually first fell in love with Fiordland. So that was seeded a really, really long time ago. And I actually wasn't a rock climber yet. So that all kind of followed through. So thanks to the Gutsy Girls that they kind of, I won the grant with this crazy idea. And then once I won, I was like, oh shit, I've got to actually do it, which was kind of scary, but we did it. Pardon for my French, by the way. So this is actually some images from the book that I photographed years and years ago. It was called The Last Great Southern Adventure, Helicopter Hunting Fiordland. So do look up the industry if you're like, oh, it's kind of gross. There's a bit of a story behind it. This is the kind of landscape that I fell head over heels in love with. And could never quite forget about. And I always wanted to maybe do something out there, like walk along the peaks or whatever. And I never thought that I would actually make a film in this place at all. Okay, so this is the team. So sponsorship was a really important part of this project. In the end, we got the project cost about $40,000, which if you'd told me that at the beginning, I would have been like, oh, no, thanks. But yeah, in total, it was about $40K. And sponsorship and help does help cover that, but there's always a personal cost, so these projects are a labour of love. You don't do them to make money, you do them because they're awesome and they're fun, and you've got to be passionate about being out in the mountains. But yeah, going back to the team, so I'd come up with this idea, I'd won this grant, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need who's crazy enough to do this, and this is the team. So Liz and Rosie hang out in Tassie a lot. They're pretty much Tassie rock climbers. They're both really gutsy people who are good at climbing in Tassie, and Tassie's got really crazy weather. It's chossy, it's can be pretty extreme over there. And then Anna is someone that I'd met as well a little bit earlier, and I'd met her in New Zealand, and yeah, she was a stoat trapper in Fiordland, so she was on list, she knew the terrain, she wasn't really a rock climber at the time, but yeah, that's why she made the team. So I needed a bunch of people that didn't mind going on a proper adventure off track, that knew how to navigate, that could get through bad weather and really bad chossy rock. I was definitely probably the weakest link in regards to that kind of stuff. I don't like choss. I do love trad climbing, but I'm not the biggest adventure climber. But yeah, I was the one making the film, so that's where I suppose my skills came in. Okay, so this is just a little group shot of the four of us. So that's Anna, myself, Liz and Rosie. We actually already climbed the peak, so all the stress is over. That's Simon sitting there with some Jamison. So in the film, he comes in with a whole bunch of booze and music, and we have a bit of a party. Radix Nutrition sponsored our trip. So if you're ever looking for really amazing backcountry meals, like Radix Nutrition, man, their meals are nutritious, and yeah, they're just really, really good high quality ingredients, and you feel amazing eating that stuff, and you feel like you can go forever. So highly recommend Radix. They're an NZ brand. You can get their stuff online. So yeah, oops. Sorry. All right, back to here. So going on this mission, we actually had hardly any beta. No one had really been where we were going. There's definitely parts of that country that we crossed that no one has. We honestly don't think anyone's crossed certain sections of it. So originally the trip, going back to the origins of my when I was applying for sponsorship, it wasn't to climb the Tusk. It was to do a 3 peaks traverse between Terra Peak, Mount Deja, and Lady of the Snows. And this is the kind of imagery that we were working with. A guy called Danilo Hegg, who goes hiking out there a lot and is a little bit of a climber, has photographed that region a lot, and he's one person that I interviewed and talked to extensively to try and get info on how to walk that country, because certainly you can climb in certain areas, but kind of people get to the Darrans, and that's where they stop, and that's sort of where the climbing stops. And you can climb on Terra Peak. People usually fly in there, they don't walk in there because it's just too rugged. So this is the kind of imagery we were working off when we were planning our 3 peaks traverse. And I suppose this image in here, it is an all-female climbing film. And that sort of got spurred on because from a trip that I did in the States and Canada maybe 4 years ago, I just noticed there was just quite a big difference between how many women were just crushing over there, and it was just very normal to be crushing a female. And coming back to Australia, I was like, oh, where are all the women, and where are all the films with women crushing? Because it happens all the time, but there's not a lot of media, I suppose, coverage or films or photography. So this is our original route. So Terra Peak, going across here. This is actually the tusk there. Danger Peak, Lady of the Snow. So people have all climbed these peaks, but no one had done a full ridgeline traverse. Coming into this, I knew that the weather in Fiordland is super fickle. So I needed a backup plan. I was like, if we're going to get all this sponsorship and all this support and, if we're going to make a film, we need a backup plan. So usually, weather window in Fiordland's like 3 to 5 days if you're lucky in the summer. And you watch the film, you can see exactly what happens in the middle of summer. I was on the Department of Conservation website, New Zealand website, one day, and I found this little article about Hugh Willoughby and the tusk. And that was in between Terror Peak and Danger Peak. And I was like, okay, well, Lake Liz can be our first base camp and we can reassess from there. So lucky I found that little article because that became the story. And even all the footage that was filmed with Rhys Buckingham, the bird researcher, was done before we did the trip. I didn't even know if we're going to go to the tusk or climb the tusk or anything. It was all very unknown. There's just a little pic of a kakapo. They're amazing. They can get up to 4 kilos and they're a nighttime parrot. They're a ground-dwelling parrot. Look them up. They're super cute. Look up the kakapo mating video on YouTube. It's really good. There's just a pic of NZ and where we were, just for reference. So this is another image from Danilo. So this is actually the tusk, the back of the tusk here. So Anna and I actually kind of were here on that first image you saw at the start of the presentation. Liz and Rosie would have come up sort of here, and that's the summit there. Our traverse, so this is Mount Danger or Danger Peak here. Our traverse would have taken us down here, and there's actually a sort of a chasm or a really steep gully here, and you can see it on Google Earth, and it's really severe. And Danilo Hegg, the guy who took this image, he actually tried to go down there, and I think they repelled a tiny bit. I can't remember what he said, but they totally backtracked and got out of there because it was just too severe. So that's something we would have had to cross if we'd done the traverse over to Mount Danger and then onto Lady of the Snows. This is just part of when we're looking for sponsorship, the sponsorship letter. This is our wish list. So it was pretty big and we needed a lot of filming gear. We needed color grading, editing, sound engineering, a whole bunch of climbing gear, tents, camping gear, everything. On this trip, we didn't know if we were going to hit snow, so we did pack ice axes and crampons, and we, as you can see, never used them. But we just had no idea what we were going to face. So, we took everything. So this is our budget. So we just, in the end, it was a sponsorship and grants covered $22,000, and it was an $18,000 investment and a 2-year project. So, you apply for a little grant and all of a sudden you get thrown down this crazy path, but totally worth it in the end now that it's done. When we were planning this trip, Liz and Rosie, for most of the time, were either in the States, like in Yosemite or Tassie, and I was in Victoria, Australia. This is why Anna was on the trip, because she had walked and played around in that area quite a bit. So at the start of the film, you see that we walk in on a stoat trapping line. So she had actually been along that line trapping stoats years ago. So she knew that it existed. So Anna, whilst, back and forth, we were having a few Skype conversations, and Anna was planning the trip for us, basically. We really couldn't too much, Anna had her ideas, and we would kind of talk about them. So this was the main plan that we came up with, to start here, get across the fjord, go up Sinbad Gully, do this traverse and make it kind of loop. These dotted lines are the escape routes, and as you can see here, it says very shitty. So Anna was pretty honest about what we're getting into. This is just more trip planning, just kind of, guessing how long things are going to take us. It was very loose, and just choosing camps planning camps. Okay, where can we escape? Because we're on these we wanted to do a peaks traverse, so we needed some sort of escape plans for if things went wrong. Okay, this is something a little bit more formal. So I'll go through this. We didn't want to use helicopters at all. Anna uses helis to do her stoat work. So she was very much like, we don't want to use helicopters, which we did in the end because we had so much climbing gear and camera gear, which Simon brought in with the heli drop at Lake Liz. But yeah, basically what we did achieve, so I'll go back. So our packs going in were 20 kilos still. We still needed a certain amount of gear. So they were very heavy packs, not heavy for hiking, but they were still very heavy for scrambling. Yeah, it was kind of it was a bit full on at times. You're like, it wouldn't be that intense without the packs, but yeah, with those packs, some bits were pretty sketchy. So the red line here is what we actually achieved. What we wanted to achieve was this whole orange line here. One of the escape routes was here, this green line here. Anna had actually done this, but it entailed super chossy rock and wrapping off trees and slinging blocks. So not the nicest, especially with heavy packs. Sorry. Going back. This was not an escape route we worked out through talking to Danilo. There's a lake here and no one's actually been able to cross this lake on foot. We don't think so. You would need a pack raft, and people have actually walked in here and pack rafted in here. This was another crazy escape route. So another one was coming out here and going across through this valley, which would have been super boggy. But that's kind of where we got to. In the end, it was a 40-kilometre loop, the whole thing. This is just another image. So we had a few things that went wrong along the way. We couldn't actually get a boat. So this trip we'd spent half a year planning. We couldn't get a boat 2 days before the trip, so we couldn't get anyone to take us over. We couldn't hire anything commercially, and then we finally got a fishing boat through Jeff. So that almost derailed us there. Yeah, this stoat line we followed, the beta to get up that spur, I think only a handful of people have been up there. So that was definitely a guessing game. We didn't know if we need ropes or not. We just took, what we thought we'd needed, including crampons and an ice axe. The 50 mil of rain, we get asked quite often why on earth we win on 50 mil of rain forecast. We win on that because we thought we could get to a pretty safe spot, which we kind of didn't, but we got through it. But we needed a 3-day solid window to get across from the top of that peak to base camp at Lake Liz. So we gave ourselves kind of 3 days in case the weather turned, which it did. We got another storm after that. So it was a calculated risk. It was a bit tricky where we got stuck. We could have gotten stuck in a way worse place. There was one part of the spur that was about maybe 10 metres diameter, and it just dropped severely on both sides. And if we had got stuck there, we would have definitely got blown off the mountain. So yeah, it's definitely calculated. It wasn't nice, but we had to make that choice. And with Simon, he was actually supposed to walk in with us. But a few days before the trip, he actually called me, and I just paid for his filming permits, his drone permits. And he was like, "Oh, Olivia, I actually forgot that my passport had expired." So we actually walked in on that trip not knowing if Simon was coming in and not knowing if he was going to film drone, which, as you saw in the film, the drone makes that film. So we actually walked in not knowing, and so when he got to Lake Liz, it was like, wow, hurrah. Alrighty, so this is just Liz packing. That's our stuff everywhere. There's poor Jeff. He's escaped the house. All these people have, just rocked up to his house and there's crap everywhere. I think he's having a bit of a mental breakdown. He's just left us to it. This is the 12 metres of tat that we should have brought with us rather than put in the heli drop. That's why we ended up wrapping off Liz's Prusik and one cam. So that was going to save us. We totally forgot that on the traverse. And I just put this image in because that's Rosie holding up an ice axe, kind of going, do we need to bring ice axes? Oh, I don't know. We did take ice axes, but we never use them for more than holding down our tents and a bit of tussock climbing. This is the storm that was coming, the 50 mil storm, not the really big 162 mil that we got before we escaped. So yeah, we're looking at this, and we really didn't actually look at the wind. We forgot about looking at the wind. We're like, oh yeah, it's 3 bars. Okay, it's pretty windy, but yeah, that's kind of what we chose to go in on. And Anna was like, what on earth are we doing? Like, she would probably not have gone in on that, especially knowing the terrain. But we had a few, that's what we had there. We had the 20 days that we'd planned, and we're all there, and we're like, okay, we're going in. Yeah, what else? Okay, so I can just go through a bit of how the days, how long things took us. So day 1, 3 p.m, we took the boat over and we walked 5 hours to a little hut that we actually stayed in. Day 2 was 5-hour walk to the base of the spur. The spur was about 6 hours of wet slab and vertical vegetation. It was literally like rock climbing on vegetation, and you wanted to have 3 or 4 points of contact because things would break, and if you let go or something broke, like, you were going to go to the bottom. Yeah, and then day 3 was just a little bit up to that plateau where we built those stone walls, and then the 12-hour traverse to Lake Liz. No ropes, no problem. Yeah, we did bring ropes for the spur, but there was actually nothing to rope up onto. At one point, we did haul our packs because there was a really slippery slab, and we sort of climbed but then hauled our packs. This is just a picture of us in the entanglement. This is just an image of us waiting for the storm. We've pitched our tents, and yeah, we're awaiting the chaos of that first night in the storm. Next morning, that's Anna and Liz looking a bit worse for wear. Liz's face says it all, I think. She's like, oh my gosh, what a night. Yeah, we had to dry everything out the next day, so everything got put out on the rocks. It was pretty messy and chaotic. It was pretty tricky, like with camera gear, trying not to get that wet. That's thousands of dollars of gear right there. All our clothes, sleeping bags got wet. Lucky we had the 3-day nice weather window. Yeah, that's just us drying our stuff. This is a Kia here, so we actually couldn't explore this plateau very much because the Kias came in and they just wanted to steal all our stuff, so we had to sit there all day, which was fine. That's just another still image, and that's Liz with our tents. So just to give the scale of like where we were at, it was pretty stellar. That's just us walking up to the next little plateau where we camped the next night. That's just an image in there to show the alpine flowers. They were spectacular. It's pretty rocky, pretty rough, and then you've got these beautiful little flowers. It was pretty sweet. That's just another image, a still image of us looking down into the valley we just walked up. That's us with our little stone walls. This actually isn't in the film. So in between the storm and doing the traverse, we did camp one more night, and yeah, we built these little stone walls because we were so terrified of the wind, but that night was totally fine. That's an image of Rosie doing a bit of painting, a bit of, I think she needed to, yeah, just chill out after that storm and kind of getting into this landscape and, yeah, soaking it up. Yeah, as I said, Radix, they did super well supporting us in regards to our nutrition. We felt very energized the whole time. So there's Anna having a quiet moment, and there's myself, and they were really good actually as hot water bottles. So yeah, there's a hint there. Just some more imagery. So Liz crossing a waterway, and yeah, just the stellar landscape we were in. It was just so grand and big, and we were so small. It was a very beautiful, unique, kind of intimidating feeling. Okay, so this is actually like a bit of a panorama. This is where we wrapped from, and this is what we were looking at when we were sort of moving across. Yeah, so this is what we're looking at. We're like, it's a mission. No one that we know of has gone across there. We definitely chose to go along the peaks, and you'd need a rope and you'd need time. So yeah, that's what we kind of were faced with when we finally got to the top. So I was like, okay, thank goodness we've got a couple of days of good weather. That's Anna just scoping. So yeah, we've sort of traversed these kind of pretty solid slabs actually, and then we get to this choss, and it was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? But it was super special being up here because you've got this west coast just there, and yeah, it just felt super magical. Just more photos of like the choss we had to traverse. These are like spine ridges, and it's just this rock just feels like it's going to fall from under you. But yeah, pretty special being up there. So yeah, we had wrapped here. So that's that Chelsea section, those images I just showed you. And we kind of wrapped down here, scrambled, wrapped down here, and then gone through here. This was kind of a scary spot because there was a massive gap between the ice and the rock. And with heavy packs, like it's not too bad if you didn't have heavy packs and you had sticky shoes, but some of us had just hiking boots. And yeah, it was kind of exciting getting across there. It was like, wow, don't fall in because you're probably never going to get out. This is the first time we see the tusk. So yeah, pretty stoked, pretty intimidated. Yeah, it was a pretty magical moment. There's Rosie. We've just walked down all of this. Finally, we're at Lakeleys, and there's the tusk. And yeah, once again, just checking out what we're in for. So this is Kakapo Castle. Reese Buckingham talks about this. So this is where Kakapo Stronghold, one of the last Kakapo strongholds was. So they would, you get researchers coming out there and staying at Lakeleys, and during the party scene, you see some corrugated iron and things. So there used to be an old Kakapo bivvy out there, which we found. It's in ruins now. And yeah, so Kakapo boom at night during mating season. There's an amazing like boom, boom noise all night long to attract mates. And that Kakapo Castle is where they were. So now all of those birds have been moved to offshore islands to protect them. The climb started here. There were actually some old fixed ropes there. They were kind of gross. They were not too bad, but you get to the top and they were kind of wrapped around this chossy block with moss holding the rope onto the block. So that was kind of gross. But when we got up there, I was like, okay, not the most trustworthy rope. And this is their route. So going up here, that's the pinnacle that you saw in the film. And they went all the way up here to the summit. That's just an image of Liz looking back at some country that we'd walked over. So all this, that's Terra Peak, which we never quite got to. That was one of our escape routes as well, going through this ice field here, which, you know, on the map we're like, oh, maybe we could do that. And then in real life we're like, wow, that would be really epic and dangerous. There's Liz again. I think they've just finished climbing. That's their treat for having done 600 metres of climbing in just a matter of hours. That's just another photo of Clarissa the Kakapo, our mascot. Liz is getting a little bit cold here. It's Mount Danger in the background. And yeah, they're wrapping off the back. So they're rappelled off the back. They had to do a few rappels off really chossy blocks, and it was slightly overhanging terrain. And yeah, they actually had to pitch out a traverse as well. So lucky they did that just as the sun was going down, not when it was dark, because that would have been pretty epic. Yep. There's Anna looking super happy in her element. She was amazing getting us through that terrain. Liz and Rosie hadn't really explored that area. Liz had never been to NZ. That was her first introduction, so that was pretty mega for her. Yeah, so Anna, you know, was really good at, you know, we'd be looking at the terrain and all of us are like, gee, we're not going to be able to get through that. And Anna's like, no, we can get through this. So she spends hours out there walking and trapping, and she does a bit of botany as well. So she was key to this expedition. Amazing. These Boro packs were incredible. They were perfect size. The rock out there is super sharp, and we trashed those packs and they came back amazing. So if you're looking for a really good pack, Arcteryx Boro, super. That's just an image of Anna. Amazing sunset. Yeah, it was so quiet out there. That's just a picture of the old Kakapo bivvy. So they would use that back in the 70s. And And yeah, visitors book inside there. So it was pretty cool to see stuff that was written from 68, 69, back in the day. People having a good time, people having adventures, decades ago, and we're still doing it. Okay, if you ever go to NZ, Fiordland, to Homer Hut, which is sort of in Fiordland going into the Darrens, that's Homer Hut, and Liz and Rosie put this beauty together, which is in a manila folder and a plastic sleeve of the route. So if you ever want to do Kakapo Crest, go for it. But it's truly epic. As Liz said, it may not be repeated often or if ever again. But yeah, there is a topo. Yeah, so when I went into making this film, I didn't expect for it to be seen all over the place, but it has, and I'm super stoked. The point of making this film was to get more women seen doing really cool, crazy stuff, and it worked. So it was more about just creating more content with women in it, and also women filming it. So super stoked about that. I feel like the objective was, the goal was attained. And that's it. So that's half an hour. I try to keep that as short as possible. That's our tent poles with the gaffer that Rosie was putting on with the first storm we went through. So yeah. Okay, thank you so very much for listening to this. Once again, do the quiz. You can win really cool prizes and vouchers towards your next Arc'teryx gear. And yeah, definitely tag your images with the correct hashtags to also go in for a chance to win. Otherwise, have a really amazing weekend. I hope you get involved with everything that's going on, and hopefully see you next time at the snow. Peace out.